a healthy child. But again, sort of the ethical implications of if we do this for preventative medicine, where do you draw that line between enhancement? And so what was maybe more surprising than this announcement was how little discourse followed. I mean, this was in Nature. I mean, this caught the scientific community by storm, but not really talked about beyond that world, beyond that community. And so this is the point. I'll wrap up on what we started talking about around, again, how our brains are wired. We're not wired to conceive of and absorb the speed and the exponential pace of progress that we're seeing. So to highlight this, Vinod Khosla, the founder of Sun Microsystems, did this research where he asked, what did the industry experts, the analyst experts in the mobile industry say would be the rise of the number of mobile phones being used in the world? So in 2002, 2004, the years listed, he looked at Deloitte, McKinsey, Gartner, etc. So in 2002, collectively, they predicted 16% growth, year in, year out. About 25 months later, I believe, it had doubled. So it had gone up 100%. Worldwide use of mobile phones had doubled. So in 2004, 2 years later, again, he looked at the same experts, and collectively, they projected 14%. Year in, year out, and actually it sped up. So this time, 18 months later, again, it had doubled. It had gone up another 100%. So 2006, what did they say there? They said 10%. So consider that not only are CEOs and strategy teams and executives at large companies relying upon, these are the experts, the think tanks that govern the world in which we live, but even more profound is the policy community writing the laws that govern the world in which we live. And he was able to show that it wasn't just in mobile phones, it was in oil pricing, it was in bandwidth connectivity, it was in currency trading, many of these environments that are hard to predict. So 2008, they projected 8%. Again, they made a linear projection. They expected it to level off. And again, all exponential technologies at some point do level off. But the challenge here, and this is the framework to really understand how deceptive exponential growth really is. Because of the way our brains are wired to expect linear progress, I mean, in some cases, we see, if you see solar capacity go from 0.12 to 0.24 to 0.48, it may be doubling, but it doesn't seem to be this explosive environment of innovation. So I mentioned the Human Genome Project. It took 10 years to sequence that genome. 7 years into the project, they had only completed 1% of the genome. So if you're the U.S. government and you're writing billion-dollar checks, Congress is pouring money into these research labs, why would you continue to invest in these technologies if they're not panning out? The amount of technologies that die in this part of the curve inside large companies is really incredible. So maybe the best example of where we're seeing this today is maybe Google Glass. So Google Glass, it's not that useful, it's kind of dorky, it's expensive, it doesn't really do much, but what happens is we miss the underlying exponential doubling in either the usability, the performance, or the cost. And now we see these environments just explode, and we're caught off guard. And when they hit these tipping points, again, our brain's capacity to conceive of how scalable they go and how explosive they become, it's really hard to see. And so really what we're seeing in society is we're living through many of these inflection points in all of these sort of siloed areas like health and medicine, robotics, biotech, 3D printing, etc. But all of them are reaching this tipping point, which has really incredible implications for where humanity is going. So Ray Kurzweil, who I mentioned, sort of pioneered this research. One of his most powerful quotes that I've come across is that measured in sort of the pace of progress in the 20th century, it won't feel like 100 years of progress, what we're about to move into. It will feel more like 20,000 years of progress at that speed. And again, our brains can't. All of human progress has been somewhat manageable in that things changed, but they changed across generations. For the first time, we're now living, and we see this with kids, we're seeing the pace of progress now happen within generations at a speed that we've really never seen. So it's not this slight incline that it's been for all of human history. It's a wall. We're approaching a wall that's going straight up that we have no idea where it's taking us and what's on the other side. And so that's really what Singularity University is about. So I'll just mention briefly, so we have these education programs We work with companies so we have startups that are based full-time at NASA with us, working on some of their projects, and a few large corporates have actually built or have signed up for space that are working on some of their concepts as well. But if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer those later. But I did want to end on one sort of fun clip. I was talking with someone earlier about so Jason Silva. So this is a clip. I should set context. So he is very much a philosopher. So basically what we're talking about, I think he does a really interesting job of communicating some of the concepts of what we're discussing. So it's about a 90-second clip, and then we'll wrap up.
How is this? You have exponential progress, right? These exponential growth curves in information technology that point to the fact that the computer in your cell phone today is 1 million times cheaper, 1 million times smaller, and 1,000 times more powerful than a $60 million supercomputer was that was half a building in size 40 years ago. That's a billion-fold increase in price and performance and miniaturization. That's going to continue. So in the next 25 years, computers will be the size of blood cells interfacing with our biological bodies, trillions of times more powerful capabilities. And then you also have that information technology exponential growth curve spilling over into biotechnology. Freeman Dyson talks about the domestication of biotech, things like GPS that were once these big government things, and now everybody has GPS on their phone. So imagine the same thing with biotechnology. It's not going to be like Monsanto, big genetic engineering corporation. No, it's going to be like we're each going to be able to engineer our own food and have in vitro meat and reprogram our own biochemistry, upgrade our biology, live longer, reverse engineer aging, stop entropy from killing us. And then, okay, that's biotech. Then you have nanotechnology, which is to manipulate matter at the level of the atom. So at that point, the building blocks of the physical world will be programmable. So literally, we can turn, dog shit into pearls. Talk about abundance. Talk about giving the world everything they could ever need and more. Each of us increasingly moving into universes of our own construction. Then artificial intelligence, virtual reality, hacking into our nervous systems, creating non-biological intelligence or a biotechnological hybrid that augments and feeds upon itself in some recursive feedback loop that expands onto forever. And you're talking about substrate-independent minds, trillions of times more powerful than we are now. And if we can imagine it, why not make it so?
Apologize for the goofy language he had in there, but so he's actually come to a program at Singularity University. He speaks that quickly in real life also, which is really weird. He also doesn't drink coffee, so I don't know how.
Doesn't need to.
He smokes pot though.
That he does.
I don't know if a computer program can know that.
Yeah, he does do that. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So really, Singularity University is about trying to convene folks from across these different technology areas, try to learn to think in this exponential way. And we didn't really go into, we could do a full session on sort of the positive sort of social impact side of how we're sort of channeling our entrepreneurs and our corporate partners to try and look at addressing some of these big challenges. But that's what I wanted to share with you. And so with that, I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for this. Was very fascinating. I have a couple questions. I'm wondering. So you said this like 3 times, but I still can't get it. What exactly is the university doing? Is it a think tank? Is it all those things? Is it you know what I mean?
I just sat in literally a 4-hour meeting with a consulting firm that does brand architecture to try and answer that question.
Right.
So I would, if I had to distill it into one term, I would call it a learning center. So we're not a university. We host learning programs. So there's really 2 halves to Singularity University. So we run learning programs. So we have 2 core types of programs. One is for the summer program students that spend 10 weeks with us. The other is an executive program for executives, government officials, investors, entrepreneurs. That lasts a week. It's 1 week. So we do a series of these programs throughout the year. And so our faculty are convened from different organizations that, the guy at Google building the driverless car will come and lecture about, robotic vehicles. The guy at Stanford working on AI and machine learning will come and talk about that. So we have the luxury of sort of being in Silicon Valley. We can convene people that spend their full time out in the world doing these things, and we bring them together. You could think of it as like summer camp for adults, I guess.
Right.
For these
And so
executives.
is there like a vetting process for how people who gets to come?
Yeah. So for the 10-week program it's a really pretty rigorous application process. So there's 2 ways. One is a traditional application, letters of recommendation, resume, very similar to applying to a grad program. The other way, the other mechanism, are through what we call our global impact competitions. So for example, the first one was in Sao Paulo in Brazil, where we put out a challenge to local entrepreneurs saying anyone who comes up with a solution using an exponential technology that positively addresses a challenge that affects at least 5 million people, the winning idea, 5 million, that's
It's a low bar.
That's a low bar. Our mission as an organization is within 10 years, we want to empower entrepreneurs and startups to positively influence a challenge that affects at least 1 billion people within 10 years. And you can point to these exponentially scaling technologies in the world today that are doing just that. And so the 10-week program is a pretty rigorous application vetting process. The executive program is also it's also an admissions-based program, but we have learning partnerships in place with organizations. Naval Special Warfare will send Navy SEALs, the U.S. Marine Corps, Coca-Cola. Actually, if you follow the news, OPM, the government agency that just got the huge hack, maybe should be proud, but they're one of our learning partners as well. They need to come back. They need to come back.
That makes sense. So the faculty, are they kind of researching all the time? What are they doing when they're not teaching?
So when they're not teaching, they're out doing, they have full-time jobs outside of SU. So SU is not their full-time focus.